I know, this video as a whole is quite bold. Proclaiming that one single protagonist in gaming is the best protagonist that gaming has ever seen is quite bold to say. And some people that are clicking on this video might think, why is it John Marston and not Arthur Morgan? Sure, you may spend a lot more time as Arthur Morgan, over 60 hours on the minimum, while you're spending about 40 hours as a collective as John Marston across the epilogue of Red Dead Redemption 2 and the entirety of Red Dead Redemption 1. However, I still think John Marston is the greater protagonist, and I think he's the best protagonist in gaming that I've ever seen. Of course, this entire video is a personal piece. Of course, this is my opinion, so if you differ about what the best protagonist in gaming really is, then let me know in the comments below and we can talk about it. And I'd really like to know what other people's best protagonists really are, because there's such a wide variety of protagonists out there, all with their own goals, motives, development, and all the great stories out there for video games to really show the greatest protagonists in the medium. Some other quick protagonists I can claim out there are Geralt, Arthur Morgan, Joel Miller, for example, from Last of Us, and there's many other like Ezio, Sam Fisher, Master Chief, Nathan Drake, Kratos. There's so many protagonists out there that have their own plot, their own story, that they have their own development that really make them great protagonists for anyone out there. And some people may say that Ezio, for example, is the greatest protagonist. However, everything is up to opinion, and for me, John Marston is the greatest protagonist I've ever seen in gaming, and that's become even more clear after playing Red Dead Redemption 1. Even before playing the first Red Dead game, which I just finished quite recently a couple days ago, I did make a video on Arthur Morgan vs John Marston, and that was before I even played Red Dead Redemption 1 at all and knew anything about the game. And even at the end of that video, I said John Marston is the greater protagonist. Of course, if you want to see my in-depth reasons as for what that is, you can check out that video, but I'm going to be talking about that a little bit here as well, because that does go into why I think he's the best protagonist and why he's better than Arthur Morgan as a protagonist as well. John Marston has a crazy amount of development over the two games that he's featured in. First, I'm going to talk about Red Dead Redemption 2. As you start Red Dead Redemption 2, the first thing you hear about John is that he's getting eaten by wolves in the middle of nowhere, that he ran out of the gang, and that he basically betrayed the gang because he left the gang because he couldn't believe that Jack was his actual son. So seeing this image of John Marston at the start of Red Dead Redemption 2 really establishes the image that he's quite a coward and that he's quite stupid as well. And although that isn't something that's carried across both Red Dead Redemptions, it really starts to build his character as you see this annoying, naive, and sometimes stupid character who just wanders about and doesn't really understand what he's thinking about, what he's actually doing, slowly mature into what he is in the epilogue, which is a much more mature character, one that actually cares about his family and puts them first. However, he still clings to the outlaw life, as we can see in American Venom, where even though everything is settled for him and he's chilling out here on a farm in the middle of nowhere in his ranch in Beach's Hope, he decides to go after Micah Bell, and that's actually what cements his death in the end, as we can see that Edgar Ross and someone else, another government agent, found Micah's body and then eventually traced him down. However, the development that John has from 1899 in Red Dead Redemption 2 at the very start of the game all the way to his death in Red Dead Redemption 1 is astounding. Of course, Rockstar has always been known to create amazing, human, grounded protagonists, and that can be seen with Arthur Morgan, for example. He's a really grounded protagonist. You feel connected to the characters because they aren't doing anything absurd. They're absolutely grounded in such human affairs, ones that we can relate to as the viewers, as the audience, as the players of these games. And Rockstar has always been able to create such protagonists that feel so grounded that you can connect to them on a much greater level than you can for other protagonists. Of course, with Arthur Morgan, I felt the exact same thing. With Joel Miller, for example, then you have all these fantastical protagonists and such, and although they have such human characteristics, John Marston truly feels like a character that you would see in 1899 or in 1911 or wherever he was living in, and you could really feel that the protagonist had a lot of development that felt human. He couldn't automatically change or change his past. He couldn't have a happy ending. That's what I really like about both Red Dead games. Rockstar doesn't just give you out a free happy ending. Instead, the game really develops and shows that the characters actually have consequences coming for them. And in John Marston's case, he has all of this set up for him, where he gets to have a family life, where he gets to have a ranch. However, he throws this all the way to go for Micah Bell, and eventually this results in government agents hunting him down, and his past does catch up with him, because even though he does everything that Edgar Ross and Fordham asked of him, he still got murdered at the end, as he was the one loose end that still had to be taken care of. He was still a criminal at the end of the day, and seeing that a person's past will eventually catch up to them was really spectacular. And this is what makes Rockstar's protagonists so incredible in the first place. There's so many great protagonists that Rockstar has made, and Arthur Morgan and John Marston are just two of them, and they're so grounded, so human, and they put them in such human consequences and human situations that we as the viewer can relate to, and it really brings in this connection to the characters that no other characters in the medium can represent. Of course, I've been connected to other characters in the medium mediums such as Ezio and such, but the groundedness of both Arthur Morgan and John Marston are absolutely astounding, and John Marston, another level of how he develops from 1899 to 1911, is unparalleled in any other video game I've ever played. He has such character development that is amazing to see played out, as we see his values change from the start of Red Dead Redemption 2 to the very end of Red Dead Redemption 1. It's astounding to see how you can create such a good protagonist here, and being able to play as him, feel the loneliness that he feels, feel the eeriness that he feels in Red Dead Redemption 1, for example, really cements the character development and the greatness of Red Dead Redemption 1 and John Marston as the character of that game. Something I really liked about Red Dead Redemption 1 in general was the eeriness of the game. In Red Dead Redemption 2, as Arthur Morgan, although he was a great protagonist, when you came back to the camp, you felt safe, you had others to rely on. John Marston is a lone wolf, he's by himself, you're truly out on the frontier, and you're looking and scavenging for anything that can help you out. You don't have any friends, you don't trust anyone in the West, and it really feels like a grounded situation. He's being stuck by these government agents to hunt down his former gang members in order to get his family back, and even when he does, the government takes that away from him, showing him that his past will always catch up to him. I really find this astounding by Rockstar's protagonists. They're not scared to kill off their protagonists or their main characters in any way, and it truly makes these characters grounded, because if they gave John Marston that happy ending, then what were the consequences of his initial actions in Red Dead Redemption 2, for example, where he killed, murdered, and robbed innocent people? I really enjoy how Rockstar is able to create such complex morality questions within their games, and it's amazing to see how they can use characters like John Marston to question the moral choices of the player, because there's an honor system, there's things happening, there's consequences for your action in the game, and it really brings you into the immersion of that world, of those characters, of what's going on in the plot, and you really get to feel like John Marston, as cliche as that sounds. Although us, the players, would want to see John Marston have his happy ending, he doesn't deserve that happy ending. A lot of people can relate this to Joel Miller, for example, from The Last of Us. Although he did save Ellie, and many people think that he deserved a good life, he still did murder hundreds of people. He stopped a cure that helped humanity survive in the outbreak, and he did all these horrible things in order to save one person. So his actions and his past eventually caught up with him, and he also died in the same vein that John Marston died in. So although we do think that these characters deserve their happy endings, and although John did seem like he had actually changed for the better, he still clung on to that hardcore outlaw life, and you can see that in the way that he still holds on to threads of Dutch's philosophy about the world. And it's astounding to see how his character truly did change from Red Dead Redemption 2, but he still has these core values that make him John Marston, and some of these core values do not align with the many core philosophies that America is attaining through its civilization. And although they can be hypocritical and sometimes absurd at times, John Marston doesn't fit into their guidelines, and therefore he is murdered because he's one of the last remnants of the Wild West, and his position in the Wild West and in the ending of the Wild West as an era in America at the time really makes him such a fantastic character. His development is astounding to see played out, as we, the players, actually get to see every event in his life that shaped him and that shaped who he becomes and what happens to him at the end of the game as well. And I really think that Rockstar's protagonists are some of the best in gaming history, and I really do think that John Marston is the greatest protagonist gaming has ever seen.
Cold wind blows into the skin. Can't believe the state you're in. It's so far away.